What's up, Guardians, and welcome back, Titans. I'm Profane, thanks for checking out the video. There's been a lot of strong builds that have come out of the most recent update with the new Revenant episode, but if you're looking for a build that's going to embrace the theme of this dark and ominous episode, to unleash total carnage and absolutely destroy your enemies, then there's no better place for a Titan to look than a Prismatic Consecration build. But with all the new weapons, new mods, sandbox changes, and exotic reworks, what is the best way to run a Consecration build during Revenant? Well, today we're going to answer that as we dive deep into this powerful new Consecration variant that's going to provide you with top tier levels of crowd control, damage output, ability uptime, and survivability. In many ways, this Consecration build is a lot like those that we've seen over the last few months, but because of the big focus towards Stasis, we've made quite a few changes that will complement all of the new Stasis-inspired artifact mods, the new tonics, and all of the other bonuses. At the heart of this build is the Consecration aspect, and that gives us a powerful solar slam that scorches and ignites enemies, and by choosing Frenzied Blades, we'll be able to have as many as 3 charges to that Consecration. Because of the increased focus towards Stasis, we could also use Shiver Strike, which would synergize with the use of Crystalline Converter, which would grant a bonus in Stasis melee damage, but we would lose out on our ability to perform back-to-back Consecrations. We are using Knockout to complement the use of Consecration. This gives us a source of health regeneration, a method of becoming amplified, and it grants us a bonus in melee damage, giving our uncharged melee a 100% increase in damage, with our powered melee receiving a 50% increase. Bungie has improved the overall performance of Knockout, so it should be much more reliable. Even though Diamond Lance received its own adjustments, I still find Knockout to be a much better aspect, especially since we're going to have several ways of freezing enemies and generating frost armor without using Diamond Lance. Before we dig deeper into our subclass options, let's go ahead and talk about our exotics of choice. There's several great exotics and great exotic class item combinations that would fit nicely into this Consecration build, but we have our eye on an exotic class item combination that comes with the Spirit of Severance and Spirit of Contact. We've chosen this combination because of how it will complement our inclusion of Stasis abilities, weapons, and other effects. Spirit of Severance will create a large explosion whenever landing final blows with a finisher or a powered melee. These explosions will damage nearby enemies, and they'll cause any frozen enemies or crystals to shatter, which will make us much more effective against large groups of enemies. Spirit of Severance will have some special synergy with a few different artifact mods like Debilitating Wave, which will trigger a weakening explosion after performing a finisher. And then there's Total Carnage, which provides damage resistance after a finisher. By using Total Carnage, we could ensure that we're always able to keep some form of damage resistance active, to be able to help us get through those more difficult encounters. With the Spirit of Contact, we're able to trigger Jolt whenever performing our Consecration Slam. With most of our enemies already being affected by Slow, Freeze, Scorch, and Ignitions, Jolts are going to be a perfect cherry on top, as it's going to cause a ton of bonus area damage, and it's going to allow us to be able to stun Overload champions and Unstoppable champions with our Consecration. With Spirit of Contact triggering Jolt, we'll be able to reap the benefits of the Trace Evidence artifact mod, which is going to create an Ionic Trace whenever rapidly defeating enemies who are already under the effects of Jolt. Ionic Traces will grant bonus melee energy, bonus grenade energy, and bonus class ability energy, helping us maximize on our ability uptime. We'll talk in further detail about our weapon choices with this build later on, but when it comes to exotic, we've chosen a heavy grenade launcher. The Salvation's Grip has always been a bit of an underperforming exotic, but because of the focus towards Stasis, coupled with a new catalyst, this grenade launcher will be a really smart choice throughout Revenant, especially with Consecration builds. This new catalyst, which is available through ritual playlist activities like Vanguard, Gambit, and Crucible, provides Salvation's Grip with the equivalent of the new Rhyme Stealer weapon trait. So whenever we shatter crystals or frozen enemies with this weapon, we'll be generating 2 stacks of frost armor, which will grant us right around 9% bonus damage resistance. With all the other benefits that shattering crystals and frozen enemies will provide, having a consistent source of frost armor will make us that much harder to kill. Stepping back into our class tree, I want to talk about our choice in Super and Grenade. We are using Glacial Quake, which gives us a roaming super that's not really known as being a high damage super, but it can be effective at crowd control, as you'll create a ton of stasis crystals that you and allies can use to hide behind, or you can use to shatter and deal out extra damage to nearby enemies. When it comes to our grenade option, we could go with Shackle grenades, which would give us a nice method of trapping our enemies in place with those suspensions. But that's something that we'll have the benefit of anyways whenever we are in our transcendent state. So to synergize better with stasis abilities, we are using Glacier grenades, which creates a big wall of stasis crystals, and that's going to instantly freeze enemies, allowing us to jump in there with a big old Consecration slam. When it comes to our Prismatic Fragments, we are using the Facet of Protection, and that's going to give us a 15% increase in damage resistance whenever we have at least 3 enemies nearby. And when we are in our transcendent state, that bonus is going to increase to 32%, and this can be stacked on top of other resistance bonuses like Frost Armor and Void Overshields. We've got Facet of Dawn, which is going to grant us with Radiance after striking enemies with a powered melee. When Radiance is active, our weapons will deal 25% more damage, and any weapon that's not already attuned to a specific champion will have the ability of piercing barrier champion shields. With our Consecration Slam handling Unstoppable and Overload champions, we'll be able to effectively have all 3 champion types covered before we even decide on our weapon loadouts. Moving on, we have the Facet of Courage, and that's going to really come in handy as it grants a 10% bonus in damage against any frozen or slowed enemy, and that's going to stack right along with Conductive Cosmic Crystal, which will grant our Arc and Void energies increased damage against any frozen or slowed enemy, which will directly tie into our use of the Spirit of Contact. With Facet of Purpose equipped, whenever we collect Orbs of Power, we're going to give ourselves Frost Armor because of our choice in the Glacial Quake Super. All of the different sources of Frost Armor are going to stack on top of each other until reaching its maximum, and that's going to provide us with a 36% bonus in damage resistance. So between Salvation's Grip and everything else that we've got going on, we should be able to maintain that Frost Armor as long as we're staying engaged in combat. The last fragment that we're using is Facet of Ruin, and that's going to enhance our ignitions and shattering effects, as it gives both of those a larger radius. It also grants bonus damage from any shattering effects, which does include all the stasis crystals created by our super, our grenade, and the Salvation's Grip. We've covered a few different artifact mods already, but one of the most influential mods that we're using is Hail the Storm, and that's going to have a direct impact on this entire build, as this will cause the shattering effects from crystals and frozen enemies to deal more damage, to a larger radius. It's also going to send out these tiny little ice shards that break off after those detonations, and those shards are going to seek out nearby enemies, causing them to become slowed. We're also using Power from Pain, and this will provide us with Devour, which we'll be able to trigger after rapidly defeating weakened enemies. We'll be able to make enemies weak by using Concussive Reload, which causes grenade launchers to trigger weakening effects against enemies, and that includes the Salvation's Grip and any other grenade launcher that we're using. Once Devour is active, it's going to get refreshed every time we get another kill, and every time we get a kill, we're going to get bonus health and bonus grenade energy. Along with Salvation's Grip, we do intend on using at least one other stasis grenade launcher, and currently we are using the Liturgy, which comes with Chill Clip and Rhyme Stealer. So we'll be able to inflict more slow and freezing effects against enemies while granting ourselves Frost Armor. And don't forget that those enemies are going to become weakened with a 15% debuff, increasing any source of damage. When it comes to our energy slot, we have chosen to go with a Void weapon, like the Recluse, so that way we can cash in on the bonus that Conductive Cosmic Energy provides. And by using a Void weapon, we have the opportunity of using Destabilizing Rounds with Repulsor Brace. Together, these traits cause enemies to explode with Void energy, which is great for bonus ad clear capabilities. But what's even better is that we're going to be able to trigger a Void Overshield, which is going to provide us with a 70% bonus in damage resistance. And that is going to stack on top of the other resistance bonuses that we're getting. But as those bonuses stack, there is a depreciation in the value. But between Frost Armor, Knockout, Devour, and Void Overshields, we'll be able to endure the most brutal waves of enemies. And with constant shattering, ignitions, and jolt, we'll be able to clear out huge rooms of high-ranking enemies like they were nothing, even at 15 to 20 levels under. When it comes to character stats and armor mods, our main goal is to increase the uptime of our Consecration slam, and that's why we're focusing into strength. And it's also why we've added on several mods that grant bonus melee energy, like Outreach and Melee Kickstart. Outside of strength, we should focus towards resilience. Having this at tier 10 means that we'll be able to take 30% less incoming damage, which is an invaluable benefit when you're in in-game content. As I said at the top of this video, there's a lot of strong builds available for Titans right now, but you're not going to find many others that have this level of crowd control, damage output, and survivability. So if you're in need of a strong build to get through Onslaught Salvation or any of the other new activities, then be sure to check out this amazing new Consecration build, utilizing the Spirit of Contact, the Spirit of Severance, and the Salvation's Grip. And with that, I wish you all the best of luck out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this new Consecration build, what your favorite builds are so far, and what you're excited for the most out of this new Revenant episode. Let us know down in the comments below. If you need to make a copy of today's build, you can easily do so by visiting the Mobalytics link that's down in the description, where you'll be able to find this and a ton of other great in-game builds. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new place to call home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's down in the description, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.